basically because crops require water at the right time, and the rainfall, which is the primary source of water, is not always providing water at the right time when crops require. And so, hence irrigation is required at the time when rainfall is not available.
Okay. Now, there are three kinds of irrigation, whatever I read in economic literature: micro irrigation, medium irrigation, large irrigation. How do you distinguish these three? And which way would you suggest for India to go?
Actually, the government says that any project which is irrigating less than 2,000 hectares is considered minor irrigation.
Medium, you mean?
Minor irrigation.
Okay.
And between 2,000 and 20,000 hectares, medium irrigation, and anything above 20,000 hectares is a major irrigation.
Okay.
This is how the government defines these three categories of this thing.
Okay.
But actually, these are not the three main categories. Actually, there are two main categories essentially. In addition, I mean separately, one is the groundwater irrigation, and another is surface water irrigation.
And explain for a layperson what does that mean? Very clearly, surface water is above the surface of the land, isn't it?
Yeah, basically surface water irrigation means that the water that is stored on above the surface of the land and then provided for irrigation. And the groundwater irrigation means the water that is in the aquifers below the ground, which is pumped onto the surface for irrigation.
So, what would you suggest as a development professional? Which way should India go on both these dimensions of irrigation, groundwater as well as opposed to surface water, and minor, medium, and large, as you had explained earlier?
Okay, I mean before we go into it, there are a couple of other issues that needs to be understood. One is that, see, rainfall, as I said earlier, is the primary. Just 1 second. हेलो बोल रहा हूँ તમે એક અડધો કલાક પછી ફોન કરશો હું બીજા ફોન ઉપર વાત કરું sorry so see, first issue is that
I'm here.
The first issue is that the crops, the rain is the primary source of water, as I was saying earlier. And you know, many times the government literature talks about all this phraseology: groundwater, surface water, minor, major. They don't include rainwater as the primary source of water. If we don't recognize that reality, then we can get into problems actually, and that's what the government has got into. Because and our national water policy, for example, doesn't recognize this fact that the rainfall is the primary source of water. And in fact, today India has approximately 140 to 141 million hectares of net crop area. And out of that, approximately 80 million hectares is still rain-fed. So those farmers are completely dependent on rainfall. So that's one important aspect. And so what is required essentially, that if crop, and basically rainfall is also decentralized, as is the crop water requirement. And hence the logical, economical, environmental and social implication is that one should harvest the water rainfall where it falls, use it in whatever is optimum way. And there can be a question of different technologies, different scales, and so on. But the primary principle has to be that we must harvest water where it falls.
So rainwater is more important than, let's say, a river which is flowing. Is that what?
Definitely, because even the river gets its water from the rain, basically.
Okay. So what would you suggest? How should one go about irrigation? Check dams.
So see, I mean, it's not that simplistic either. So that this should be the guiding principle. The second guiding principle.
So can you repeat that guiding principle? You're saying that the rainwater itself has to be irrigated.
Rainwater has to be used.
Okay.
And harvested to the optimum extent at the local area.
At where it falls. Where it falls.
Okay.
Okay.
That should be the guiding principle, the first principle for irrigation. The second principle, which is again the Ministry of Water Resources and even the Agriculture completely forgets, is that, see, the soil also has a certain capacity to absorb moisture. And that moisture is the one that is useful to the crops more than any other water anywhere else. And more is the capacity of the soil to absorb moisture, then less is the requirement of irrigation, and you will have more healthy crops. Not only for irrigated crops, but also for rain-fed crops. Now, so the second, what this means is that we should see that how we can sustain the capacity of the soil to retain more moisture and sustain moisture.
Okay.
Now this is applicable for most areas. There are some water areas which are prone to waterlog, for which this may not be applicable, because there the problem is too much water. But that's a very minuscule part of the area. And the main ingredient in the soil which helps soil to retain moisture is actually carbon. Which means if you have organic content.
Okay.
So more organic content, more carbon one can help soil to retain, one more we can add, then the soil will have more capacity to hold moisture. So then it will absorb more of the rainfall. And it will provide it to the roots and crops when required, and we will have less requirement of irrigation, artificial irrigation.
Okay.
Now these principles should guide. The third, and coming to now to your question, what should be the priorities for our irrigation sector?
And the path.
And yeah, the first priority has to be that we have created such a huge infrastructure. India has world's largest irrigation infrastructure in the world. China doesn't have this big irrigation infrastructure. But that irrigation infrastructure, everyone from Planning Commission to Finance Minister accepts that is performing very poorly. Our irrigation efficiencies are one of the worst in the world. And our gap, we are claiming so much irrigation, but actual irrigation achievement is much lower. So the second principle has to be that we have to optimize the infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure we have created, which means we need to ensure optimum repair, maintenance and upkeep and performance of the irrigation infrastructure we have created, and we must allocate the first available resource for that purpose, because that's a capacity which has already been created. The society has already paid the costs, the economic cost, financial cost, social cost, environmental cost, opportunity cost. It has all been paid, and hence that source has to be optimally utilized in the first place.
So existing infrastructure has to be used.
Yes, existing, and has to be used in optimum way. And resources has to be allocated for that. That's not happening today, in fact. In fact, and that is why our irrigation infrastructure is performing so poorly. In fact, we have no system in place to even assess that how is the performance and how we can improve that. So this is a big problem. We are good, like somebody said, like a king who wants to capture our water resource establishment is good at, wants to capture more and more territories, but it is not bothered what captured territories are already doing. So this is and this is basically because there is more money in new infrastructure. So they are not bothered about upkeep and repair and maintenance, optimum utilization of the created infrastructure. So that's the second major issue. The third major issue is that if you look at the performance, now we try to look at the performance of irrigation infrastructure in India, and what we found is that from a peak in 91-92, our major and medium irrigation projects are the projects where we spend maximum money. Even for the current ongoing 11th 5-year plan, more than 2/3 of the water resource budget is going for major and medium irrigation projects. And this is the situation in all over last 60 years we have been doing. Now, so we said that, okay, let us see what is the performance of these major and medium irrigation projects. And then we plotted the net area irrigated by major